Not a single thing Jimmy Dore has said the entirety of this segment was he right on. He was wrong on every single segment. He was wrong about the history of the country. He was wrong about what would happen with the Supreme Court. We were not able to filibuster. We got 3 Supreme Court seats in there, and Trump prioritized Republican establishment positions. He steamrolled it through. Why can't he get anything right on this? What is he talking about? What? What is he talking about? This is a complete lack of knowledge of basic American history. Just look at the entire treatment of the Native Americans. What? We gave soldiers medals of honor for going and massacring Native American civilians. Yes, there's been war crimes up and down without prosecution in the United States before. That is historical fact. And number 2, never have we suspended habeas corpus. Abraham Lincoln, one of the most respected presidents in the history of this country, suspended habeas corpus during the Civil War to deal with Confederate sympathizers. This is basic American history. What? Because that would go against years of United States policy? And we saw no indication from Hillary that she intended to do that? You can say, well, she left nukes on the table. Basically, every president did it, and none of them launched nukes. The last time there was a real chance of us launching nukes to achieve a small-scale strategic advantage was during the Korean War, when the Soviet Union didn't have nuclear weapons, and that was because of Douglas MacArthur. And you want to know what happened to Douglas MacArthur? He lost his job. So no, there was never any reality that we lived in where Hillary Clinton was gonna nuke Syria. What is he talking about? Hope you're all having a blessed day. Let's get into it. Let's watch the Sam Seder debate. I wanna see who has had more prophetic notions around the 2016 election and around this current political time frame. Because again, one of the best ways to check if somebody is worth listening to is by seeing how right they were about the events unfolding today.
Jimmy, you there?
Yes, I am here.
Were your ears burning?
Yes, they were.
All right. Well, to be fair, I gave you a heads up that we were going to do this.
Now, Sam, if you're gonna do this kind of blindsiding with me without any warning whatsoever or heads up or even give me a chance to rebut you, that is so dishonest.
Well, Jimmy's funny. I did send him an email and tell him to do this, but it was, to be fair, it was also last night that I did that. So
maybe send me an email the night before to let me know you're going to do this.
Well, I appreciate you're having a sense of humor about it. But talk to me about it, because I still have more of your tape, and we can go over that tape.
Sam, I like you. I like your show. I would come on your show whenever you want me to come on. So all you do is a little email or a text or something. Let me know you're going to be ripping me a new asshole, and I'll show up.
Well, I'm trying to overlay it on your existing one, if it makes you feel better.
Hey, you know what? Actually, I'm getting a little bit of the delay or something.
I still miss Michael.
Back in my ear
I agree with chat.
It's the libertarian thing. I think it's Peter Thiel.
Can I try? It's a little distracting, so can I call back in?
Let me call you back on a different line. I'll call you right back.
Okay?
All
right, thank you.
Boom. Look, Jimmy Dore running away. Sam Seder has already won. This completely tanks all credibility that Jimmy Dore had, already running away right off the bat. I mean, this is not looking good for Jimmy. Sam Seder already asserting alpha male dominance right here, guys.
All right. Well, we'll call Jimmy back. I did, in fact, I should say, before people start freaking out. I did invite Jimmy on last night, and he said he couldn't make it. Apparently, he can. He was just driving around. That's all he was doing.
Hello, Jimmy Dore, irresponsible journalist. How are you?
Are you on the 405 right now?
I'm on the 10. I'm texting and I'm watching a TV show at the same time while I'm driving. That's how reckless I am.
I was going to say irresponsible driver as well. All right, Jimmy. So
Yeah.
I mean, what's your response? I haven't gotten to the other parts yet. But
No, I think, first of all, Sam, just because you've been right up to this point doesn't mean I'm still not pissed off at you.
well, I mean, but we had this debate, and to watch this, I mean, it really is upsetting to me. Because
Now,
Go
let
ahead.
me just say, your point about the Supreme Court, my position on the Supreme Court is that right now, like you said, he's not your first choice. I'm with you on that. I'll just say this, right now, the Republicans aren't even giving a guy who they called a perfect choice, right? They loved him, right? Orrin Hatch said he'd be the best choice, and then they won't even give him a hearing or a meeting without batting an eye for a year. This is the argument we had before. So why wouldn't the Democrats, let's say if Donald Trump nominates a maniac, why wouldn't they say, no, why don't you nominate Merrick Garland?
Well, Jimmy,
And
this
we are,
was the next thing
and
I
then-
was going to get to. I understand. You're saying, why can't the
okay.
Democrats do this?
right.
You said on the tape here that the Republicans are filibustering. They're not filibustering.
No, they're not filibustering. That was you correct. You correct.
The Democrats,
They're not.
The Democrats, there is no one who has ever even speculated that it's possible for Donald Trump to win the presidency and for the Democrats to take back the Senate. Those two things cannot happen. And so the Democrats don't have the ability to not
That is
provide
true.
a hearing
That
for
was true back
Donald
then.
Trump's nominee. There's no way the Republicans are going to go 4 years without a hearing on. They can maybe get away with this with Obama.
So far, Sam Seder was 100% right. We didn't win back the Senate in 2016. There was no chance of it. There was no ability for us to stop a hearing for any Republican nominee for the Supreme Court.
Play out the clock for 6 or 7 months because there's a huge presidential election going on, so the media has been distracted somewhat. But I can tell you that in January, there's only going to be one story. Maybe there'll be two. One will be how if Hillary Clinton's the president. One will be how the Republicans are threatening to shut down the government again. And the other one will be they're refusing to hold hearings for her nominee. And that will just go on because there's not going to be anything else that's going on. It's going to be a fundamentally different media era. So I don't think they're going to be able to hold out for 4 years. And Democrats certainly wouldn't be able to hold out for 4 years because they don't believe in the destruction of the Senate as an institution in the way that Republicans do. And frankly, I'm glad about that.
Okay, so you don't. So here's my theory. I'll just give you my theory: is that if the Republicans can do this to a guy like Merrick Garland, that they've already said is a great justice, for a whole year without batting an eye and paying no political price for it, I say the Democrats will be able to filibuster someone that Donald Trump nominated, and then in 2 years, the Senate, in my opinion, it would flip to Republican, just because of. I agree with Chris Hayes when he says that if Donald Trump becomes president, it's the destruction of the Republican Party, and Paul Ryan is not going to usher any of his crazy policies through Congress. So they fracture.
Well, I mean, Trump was the election of Trump was not the death of the Republican Party. The Republican Party is still chugging along. In fact, the Trump wing has taken over the party in the 4 years he was in office. Now, you could make the argument that Trump could not win election again, but there's no way. The Republicans have hurt themselves by having the Trump wing taken over from the fact that Trumpian politics doesn't play amazing with independents. And if Trump's the nominee again in 2024, that's going to hurt them with independents, which they're going to need to take the White House. But the Republican Party has been, a certain wing of it's been kind of slowly draining the life out of it. But the Republican Party has been taken over by Trump. It didn't exactly die. It has been taken over by Trump.
And the Senate flips to Democrat. They were saying it was almost going to happen this year. But,
Yeah,
that
but
is
you know
gonna
the
switch
difference
to-
between, I mean, Jimmy, surely you know the difference between how many Senate Republicans are running for re-election this year versus 2 years
Right.
from now, right? You,
Right.
you know the
Yes.
difference,
Yes.
right? We have 2/3 of the race is our Senate's are Republicans up for a race, and in 2 years we have 2 times the number of Democrats who are up for re-election. So
Right.
the idea of the Democrats taking back the Senate in 2018 is an extreme long shot. The idea that Paul Ryan may not pursue any of Donald Trump's
We did not take back the Senate. So again, Sam Seder's right here.
crazy.
But the prediction that the Trump will be the death of the Republican Party, so far that hasn't been the case. We're going to have to wait, honestly, another 4 years to see how the ripples of the Trump presidency really affects the Republican Party. It seems that the Trump wing is kind of winning this Republican civil war. I think Liz Cheney being removed from her powerful position as the third most powerful Republican in the House is an example of the Trump wing taking over. I think everybody going to Trump to kiss the ring. I think his approval rating within the Republican Party is still strong. He holds hard with the base. Then you have to also look at the fact that the 2024 Republican primary is going to be 100% dependent upon the Republican primary if Donald Trump doesn't run. And if he doesn't run, who he endorses most certainly will win. I mean, maybe a lot can change in the next 3 years, but I don't think that much can change in the next 3 years.
Legislation, but he will pursue Paul Ryan's crazy legislation, and Donald Trump will surely sign it. Why wouldn't he?
Okay, so
So
back to
you're
the
going to let
Supreme-
Paul
back to the
Ryan,
Supreme
would you
Court.
want Paul Ryan to be president? This guy wants to privatize Medicare. He wants to privatize Social Security. He wants to cut any type of social safety net. He wants to get rid
Okay.
of the estate taxes.
Yeah.
This right here, and I don't, okay, I don't know what I'm about to say. I don't want to be too mean to Jimmy Dore, but this is why Jimmy Dore doesn't debate. He's much better at, like, you know, the ranting in front of the camera and getting passionate, like, these Democrats, AOC, sold out. Anna Kasparian, nice news. Skirt. He's so much better at giving these like passionate type speeches where he's yelling into the camera than ever actually having a back and forth with somebody. Because if he's having a back and forth with somebody, if they disagree and it goes off the rails just a little bit, it usually doesn't turn out well to them.
I mean, why is his agenda any better than Donald Trump's? Even if you believe Donald Trump is not even going to do anything except for sign legislation, that's bad enough.
Yeah, Sam, we're on the same side most things. I'll just
No,
disagree
but
with
Jimmy,
you.
no, wait a second. No, we're not.
Oh my God, man. Oh, so right there, there's Jimmy Dore saying, I mean, here's Sam Seder saying, this strategy you're advocating for is not going to happen. We're not going to take back the Senate. This isn't going to work. Laying it down. Jimmy Dore immediately kind of like, well, we kind of agree. And Sam Seder, no, we do not agree, Jimmy. That's why you're calling in today, because we don't agree. This Jimmy Dore right now is like trying to like feed like somebody their vegetables, and they're moving their head around, and he's grabbed his face and moved it forward.
Because
What do
politically,
we I mean, except for Hillary Clinton in the Supreme Court, we disagree 100% on that. And I think that if Donald Trump is president, it's way worse for the Republicans. And if Hillary Clinton is, I agree with Chris.
If Donald Trump is president, it's way worse for the Republicans. This 100% just was not true. Republican priorities were prioritized under Trump, whether it is immigration, whether it is huge tax cuts for the rich, whether it was deregulation, whether it was going after health care and gutting the Affordable Care Act, whether it was going after minority groups, whether it was going after trans people, whether it was picking a vice president that advocated for the torture of LGBTQ folks, whether it was going after gay people's adoption rights, whether it was targeting Muslims. I mean, come on, he openly stated the statement, I'm calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States, and then Rudy Giuliani had to finagle it, and he admitted this on Fox News. So don't think this is me twisting the story. Rudy Giuliani admitted this on Fox News, that they had to finagle it to make it legal by adding Venezuela and North Korea, and not including allies like Saudi Arabia. The Dutch experience, thank you so much for the tier 1. I mean, Trump basically prioritized every single Republican priority for 4 years, and the only thing he kind of wavered on was foreign policy, but he wavered on it not in a way that Democrats would like or lefties would like. He wavered on it in a way that just created more chaos, like in northeastern Syria, with his sudden pullout that led to numerous human rights abuses, slavers charging into northeastern Syria, and Kurdish politicians getting pulled out of cars and executed. And not to mention a historic increase in support for the state of Israel. Not to say Joe Biden isn't like 100% reversing course or is being a lot more moderate on Israel. But oh my God, Trump, basically anything Netanyahu asked for, he would give him on a silver platter, no questions asked. Like, so let's be honest here. Donald Trump, whether you want to talk about alienating independents or not, that's another thing. But Donald Trump prioritized Republican priorities. He did. He serviced Republican political PAC priorities. He serviced Republican establishment priorities. The only thing he didn't do that on completely was foreign policy, but he did it in a chaotic direction because he doesn't have a foreign policy ideology. He hasn't studied international relations. He's not a liberal internationalist or a hardcore realist he doesn't understand these conflicts. He just shoots from the hip, so sometimes he just causes some chaos. That's the only difference. I mean, he can use populist language all he wanted, but the only thing he was extremely populist on was social issues. But that doesn't really piss off the Republican establishment that much. The thing that is angering the Republican establishment at this point is how much Donald Trump as a figure is becoming kind of a cult icon, and that you need to go to him and kiss the ring at this point to really make it anywhere in the Republican Party. That's where the old guard, the Liz Cheneys, are not very happy. Like, for example, Liz Cheney is very disappointed in Donald Trump when it comes to the election fraud allegations. Complete nonsense. Even Bill Barr, even Trump's own attorney general, recently admitted that the election fraud allegations have no weight whatsoever. And so, of course, what does Trump do? He turns on Bill Barr. That's all she said. That's all she said. That's the only thing Liz Cheney broke with Trump on. The person who replaced Liz Cheney voted less in line with Trump's priorities while in office, but just her breaking line on the election fraud for a moment was enough to get her removed. But then you ask Liz Cheney, so that means you don't agree with the Republican priorities on all these election security measures, which are just voter restriction measures, restricting the ability for Americans to vote. And she says, of course not. No, I love election security. So even if she doesn't agree with why we should have it, she still agrees with the outcome of what Trump's election fraud allegations amounted to when it comes to an electoral standpoint, when it comes to a legislative standpoint. So when you say Trump was a disaster for the Republican Party, the closest you can maybe make me think that Trump would destroy the Republican Party, that's been proven untrue. In fact, in the 4 years he was in office, and even post-election, he continues to take over the Republican Party with a cult-like personality cult. Well, really, it was a personality cult. So no, it was not true that he destroyed the Republican Party. At least yet, maybe in the next 4 years, Trump will do something more to alienate voters, maybe with his lack of access to social media after he was restricted from social media, and I have no clue if Jimmy Dore supported that or not. But he'll maybe lose a hold on the Republican Party, but he's still getting primetime coverage on Sean Hannity. He's still doing tours and speeches. He's still putting out press conferences, even if he doesn't get the same interactions.
When he says Hillary Clinton is good for the Republican Party and Donald Trump is bad for it. I agree with him.
I agree with that too. But in the meantime, we have a Supreme Court that is...
When he says I agree with that too, I really hope he doesn't mean what I just said, what I just laid out. Because if that's the case, then Sam Seder's also wrong here. I mean, like, at the end of the day, it did isolate independence. And it did create a cult of personality. And maybe in the next 4 years, he will, like, isolate independents to the point where it's just impossible for them to take back the White House. And maybe he'll contribute to a loss in 2022 and our ability to maybe expand in the Senate or just hold the Senate or expand in the House. But the thing is, as for him angering the Republican establishment, he served their interests. They're just not very happy about kissing the ring. That's it.
Is going to be moved to the right for generations.
So
In the
I disagree
meantime,
with you on that. I mean, you haven't
Yep.
given me an argument that rebuts what I said. That the Democrats could easily filibuster any bad appointee, and they could say, "Hey, until you
That did not happen. It sadly did not happen.
give us someone as good as Merrick Garland, we're going to keep filibustering this." And all we have to do is do it for 2 years. And my proof that they could do it is that the Republicans are doing it to a guy like Merrick Garland, who they already said they like, without batting an eye for a year. So I just disagree with you on this, Sam, on the Supreme Court. I just disagree.
and what
with you.
about when Justice Breyer or Justice Ginsburg pass away or retire?
Yeah, I mean,
So they're going to
we'll
filibuster. They're going to prevent 2 vacancies from being filled. And then you think, based on that in the context of American society as you know it, without a presidential election going on, that the Democrats are going to retake the Senate, even though they have twice as many people up for re-election?
I mean, Sam, did you think that Hillary Clinton was the stronger candidate than Bernie Sanders against the Republicans?
No.
You didn't? You always thought Bernie Sanders was a stronger candidate than Hillary Clinton against the Republicans?
Yeah. I mean, particularly against Donald Trump.
I also agreed with that, yes. He just played much better with working class people. And I believe in the states that we lost, the states that Hillary Clinton didn't even campaign in, Minnesota, Wisconsin, etc., he would have played much better. He would have done better. And I'm pretty sure he would have had the strategic knowledge and not maybe the fool of himself enough to not campaign in those states.
Oh, I thought I had you on that one. God damn it. So I was trying to tune your forecasting ability. I'm saying I don't agree with that forecast. You know, you're saying, what if there's 2 justices? What if there's 3 justices?
It ended up, it ended up being 2 justices. We're lucky that the other guy didn't die, and it was 3. I mean, it ended up Ruth Bader, instead of the Merrick Garland appointee, the Republican appointee got in office. Then Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, and the Republicans went full nitro, full throttle, and got someone to replace him. Boom. They completely looked over all the allegations with Kavanaugh, got him in there. Then Neil Gorsuch also got in there. They went full throttle.
I'm saying as it stands right.
Wait, it was 3. Fuck, I'm wrong. It was 3. You're right, chat. It was Neil Gorsuch. It was Brett Kavanaugh, and it was Amy Coney Barrett, right? Not Amy Coney Barrett. What was her name? She was the originalist who made the argument that somebody getting called the N-word in their place of work was not racist necessarily. Yeah, Amy Coney Barrett. So it was 3. I'm wrong. I said we were lucky it was 3. No, in fact, we weren't lucky. So, no, Jimmy Dore was just completely wrong here. If we had the ability to stop it, we would have. The Democrats would have liked to stop any of those appointments from going through, and it didn't.
Right now, the Republicans aren't even giving a hearing to a guy they say is great for a year. Why can't the Democrats do the same thing, Sam? Why can't they filibuster a bad justice?
Well, I don't know. Why can't I fly? Because I don't have wings. I mean, the fact is, Jimmy, is that you are taking. I mean, the what you're talking about. There's no. You're just positing things to happen. That is like, you know, it's like dropping a marble down a pachinko ladder and just saying like, well, if it hits here and it hits there and it hits there, it's going to land here. But the fact is, none of those things can logically follow each other.
I 100% disagree with you.
Well, I know that.
What do you say about the point that Chris Hayes made and Ben Howe made from Red State? They're both in agreement that they're telling. Ben Howe is telling people, his conservative friends, to vote for Hillary if they care about the safety or the life of the Republican Party and the conservative movement. Because if Donald Trump is president, it wrecks it, and they won't be able to get a governing majority, he said, for maybe decades. So
they had a governing majority, and They had the presidency. They had the Senate. They had the Supreme Court. And they still have the Supreme Court even when they lost the Senate and lost the presidency. And I'm pretty sure they had the House as well in 2016. Not only is Jimmy Dore wrong, he was immediately wrong. That they wouldn't have a governing majority for decades. But then they had the Supreme Court with 3 different Supreme Court appointees. They had the executive branch. They had the president, the presidency. They had all these, of course, state and local level appointments for judges, which of course it's gonna take a lot of work to undo that progress they made, even though that isn't, of course, a governing majority. They had the Senate and they had the House. Not only was Jimmy Dore wrong here, Jimmy Dore was immediately wrong once the votes were counted.
You can vote for Hillary Clinton. I'm going to vote for the destruction of the Republican Party, as according to Chris Hayes and Ben Howe.
Wait, is Jimmy Dore saying here that he voted for Donald Trump by voting for the destruction of the Republican Party?
Well, I think Chris Hayes would tell you to vote for Hillary Clinton. And
I
Ben
know,
Howe,
but he's going against his own logic.
I don't think he.
Can somebody fact check me on this? Is he really advocating to vote for Donald Trump here? Is he really doing that? Dore voted for Jill Stein. Oh my God.
He is. I suspect that maybe.
I don't like that. Would be like a huge. That would be news to me if he is actually advocating for that.
Just misinterpreting what he's saying. Do I think that Donald Trump is bad for the conservative party? I mean, the conservative movement? Yes. I think he's bad for the conservative movement, whether he wins or loses. Is it bad for the Republican Party if he wins? I'll tell you what happens if he wins. What he wins is like people like Ben Howe lose. They lose their job. But there are other people who win. And those people will continue on, and they will just continue. It's not like the Republican Party is going to say, oh, what's become of us? I mean, look at the way they're reacting now.
Yes, I agree. So in my idea, just let me clarify that idea of people coalescing. I mean that if Hillary Clinton is president, like right now, Barack Obama's president, he's pushing the TPP, which you pointed out, a lot of Democrats are against, right?
Right.
I have not found a good reason to be against the Trans-Pacific Partnership. If anybody wants to ever send me like information about why to be against it, I would really like to hear it.
Yet there's a chance he still might get it through, which is why he's pushing for it, because he knows there's a chance.
Well,
so
he wants it to go through. That's why he's pushing it. He knows that it's in trouble. That's why he's having to work so hard. And frankly, I think that I think there's plenty of evidence that it's not going to happen, the very least on his watch.
Yeah, that's good news, right? So,
yes,
So my point is, he helped split the opposition. Like the Democrats are like, wait a minute, my Democrat president's for this. This is some horrible right-wing policy, though. That's what I've been told. But he's for. So it splits. If it was a Republican proposing this, all the Democrats would coalesce. All the independents.
If it was a Republican proposing this, it would have passed already because they control both houses of Congress, and it would have passed.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. My theory.
Do you refute that?
Do I refute that it would have already
If the
passed
president,
if
if it was George Bush or Donald Trump right now, and you had a Republican Senate and a Republican House,
which that's what happened,
the TPP wouldn't pass. The reason why the TPP is not going to come up for a vote in the lame duck session.
Well, actually, I mean, this run here, Sam Seder's wrong on. We had a Republican House, we had a Republican Senate. TPP did not go through.
Is because it's Obama trade.
Right. So you're saying the Republicans don't want to be seen going along with anything Barack Obama does.
That would be a lot. Wait. Okay. So is he? Okay. Let me start over, because I thought you were saying that under Republican Senate and House that it wouldn't go through. That it would go through.
Vote in the lame duck session is because it's Obama trade.
Right. So you're saying the Republicans don't want to be seen going along with anything Barack Obama does.
Right.
So you're saying that a Democrat pushing the TPP is not as bad as a Republican pushing the TPP, so we should vote Democrat.
Well, I don't think Hillary Clinton's going to push the TPP.
Honestly,
Yeah. I think it's too
Wow.
toxic for her at this point. I think there's too many people in the Democratic Party who are going.
Honestly, now that he says that out loud, honestly, well, that part on it, he's kind of, I mean, if you would have asked me to guess, I think if Hillary Clinton would have won, I think there's a good chance she wouldn't have pushed the TPP. I mean, let's think about it. Biden just got into office. We have the Senate. We have the House. I think there might be some bipartisan work to actually get the TPP through, because there are a lot of Republicans who still like free trade. I think you can at least find 10, probably. Then there's the fact that Biden was part of the administration trying to push through the TPP during the Obama administration, but he's not pushing it. It's not a priority for Joe Biden. Maybe you could say that's because we have COVID and the circumstances would have been different during Hillary, but there was a lot of toxicity around TPP, as people seen TPP as a thing that was going to be destruction to the American domestic workers, was going to undermine unions, and some unions opposed it, and, you know, Democrats want to be seen as pro-union, and they abandoned it. So I think there is a legitimate argument to be made that maybe Hillary Clinton would have banned the TPP along the ideas that it's toxic. I mean, Joe Biden's in office right now, and we've seen no movement whatsoever to try to bring back the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The rest of the world, the rest of East Asia, they were like, fine, we're going to do it without you. And now a lot of these old, like, increases in regulations and worker protections, all that, we're going to scrape that from the agreement.
Going to do it. And frankly, if you have a Republican-controlled Senate and House, yes, it's better for a Democrat to push the TPP, because they're not going to give Hillary trade either. They're going to follow the exact same strategy they followed with Obama, which is obstruct. So in the same dynamic that prevented Barack Obama from cutting Social Security benefits because the Republican Party wouldn't go along with him, and then ultimately the Democratic Party got strengthened and they completely changed their position on it by 180 degrees. That is what I expect that dynamic to continue.
Yes, I remember when George Bush also proposed privatizing Social Security, and it was dead on arrival because...
Well, privatizing Social Security is far more extreme than simply cutting benefits.
Right.
But I'm in favor of expanding benefits, and the Democratic Party is now, that's the official position of the Democratic Party and all of the Democrats in the Senate.
He's right.
Right.
Including Joe Manchin.
Since Bernie endorsed her, Hillary stopped talking about climate change in her speeches. You know, she's exporting fracking around the world. She says the Republicans don't accept the science of climate change. She says she does. And we all know the science says that fracking is way worse for climate change than anyone believes. And yet here she is exporting it. So that's the kind of thing, the doublespeak, that people can't give their vote to. I can't give my vote to that, Sam.
So you're going to enable the guy who thinks that climate change is a hoax because you think that's going to get us further down the line.
No. I say it's time for...
So Sam Seder, to be clear, from this interview, was a Bernie or buster. I actually didn't know this. He did not vote for Hillary Clinton, and according to chat, I would have to go check this, he voted for Jill Stein. But it seems that he did not vote for Hillary Clinton. Sure. What state does Jimmy Dore live in, actually? Well, actually, it wouldn't even matter because he has a show where he speaks on the show and gives political opinions. So he's giving people the opinion that, hey, don't vote for Hillary.
Revolution, and we have
Jimmy Dore, not Sam, sorry.
To throw off the neoliberal agenda, which is pro-fracking, which is anti-climate change and anti-science. And, you know, we are going to have to,
I'm sorry, like, I understand that there's a lot of climate positions both Biden and Hillary, and even Bernie to a small extent, have that are in conflict with mine, that I want to go much further than many of them. But the thing is, Donald Trump doesn't even believe climate change is real. Not only would he not do any work in favor of combating climate change, he would be actively pulling us in the opposite direction. And he did, while in office, scrape regulations and subsidize coal companies. So no matter how limited Hillary Clinton's other direction would have been, it would have been easier to build up. Let's say that your position is you want to have a house built, right? You want to have a house built from bottom to top. That is your position as a working class American, right? Makes sense. Why build 20% of the house when you need the full house? It's not going to cover you from the rain. I understand that, right? So you have two politicians. One politician doesn't even believe that a house should be built because there's no rain's even going to come. There's no such thing as rain. And so what he's going to do is, instead of even starting construction on the house, he's going to salt the earth and concrete it. The other politician wants to build 30 to 40% of the house. If your goal is to build the house, I'd rather build upon a foundation 4 years later or 8 years later or how many years later from 40% of the house built than a salted earth concreted over.
Right now,
do you think Donald Trump would have okayed the Keystone Pipeline?
Yes.
Me too. Do you think Donald Trump will do that when he gets into office?
Yes. I think he'll do all the bad things you can think of.
And one of the first things Joe Biden did when he got into office was challenge and push against the Keystone Pipeline, revoke its permit. That was one of the first things he did on day one.
I think
so
that,
why would you not even want to? Why would you not want to put someone in who's in position who is going to be relying on your votes to get reelected, who's going to have to address Bernie Sanders as a powerful senator in her own party? Why would you not want that person who is closer to, even if you think that she's a horrible human being who is going to continue to wreck the planet, and you and I maybe we agree on that. Why would you not want that person in charge, because they are more accountable to Bernie Sanders and Bill McKibben and to the Democrats in the House who are against these things than Donald Trump, who could give F-all about those people and, in fact, benefits politically from telling them to go F off.
Right. And my reason is because I'm playing a longer game. I see we have struck Trump.
How much time do you think we have?
2 years.
2 years?
2 years. And then 2 years we flip. And by the way, and people are forgetting, that they're going to be redoing the gerrymandering based on the census that's coming up, right?
Why do you think the Democrats are going to control the state houses?
No, they're not. That's what I'm saying. That what's happened is that when Barack Obama was president, that people vote against him. On midterm elections, it goes against the incumbency. So that's what people
more often than not, but not in 2002.
Okay. So my point being that I don't think a Democratic presidency helps fix any of the problems we really need to fix. In fact, it makes a lot of them worse. And the Democrats got in bed with
So let me ask you this. If Bernie Sanders was the nominee, Jimmy, would you continue to espouse this? Because, of course, this would mean the end of the Republican Party as we know it in the conservative movement. So would you also not vote if Bernie Sanders was the nominee?
No, because
the thing is, my position is so easy to defend, right? And so is Sam Seder's. Because Sam Seder, in my position, is both that Hillary Clinton was better than Donald Trump, that Hillary Clinton would prioritize policies that wouldn't do everything that we wanted, but would end up protecting more people, increasing the standard of living, and saving more lives. Same argument for Joe Biden. And this is undiametrically opposed truth. This is just fact. We can see this from immediately when Joe Biden went to office. Let's talk about the Republican stimulus check. What did they want? They wanted $600. Democrats get in. Even if you wanted the $2,000, $14,000 is a larger number than $600, isn't it? It is. The stimulus bill cut child poverty in half. You have to build upon that foundation, but that's a great place to start. $1.9 trillion. The infrastructure bill wasn't even really a Republican priority. They pretend it's a bipartisan Republican priority, but it was never a bipartisan Republican priority. If you wanted to see the entirety of Trump's administration, when they were negotiating on the wall, what happened? The Democrats said, we will give you this stuff on the wall if you give us the infrastructure bill. Never happened. It was the Democratic priority, not the Republican priority. They'll pretend it is. It never was. My argument is never that my first pick was Biden or my first pick was Hillary or any of these things. My first pick in 2016 was Bernie. My first pick in 2020 was Bernie. And come the next presidential election, I'll most likely be voting and supporting the most left-wing candidate as well. But the argument isn't that Hillary Clinton is perfect. The argument isn't that Joe Biden is perfect. The argument simply is that voting for those people and getting those people in office with a Democratic majority in the Senate and a Democratic majority in the House is going to be in better conditions for the working class of the United States and a better relationship and a better internationally and with a better foreign policy. This is unopposed truth if you're a left-winger. If you're a Republican, then you can disagree with me because you have different priorities than me. You have conservative priorities. You prioritize deregulation. You prioritize maybe, not the individual Republican, but the Republican establishment certainly prioritizes anti-union values and anti-union policies. I don't value those same things.
Because Bernie Sanders isn't a neoliberal. I'm saying that people don't realize what they're getting with Hillary is not the opposite.
But
of
your
Donald
theory,
Trump.
your theory of Donald Trump is that the
Lesser evilism. I see some people lesser evilism is BS. Okay, let me ask you a question then. This is an easy question for everyone. Should we have supported the Soviet Union during the Second World War? This is an easy question. Should we have sent them trucks? Should we have sent them guns? Should we have sent them food? At one point, 20% of Soviet food was imported. That was in 1944 from the United States. 40% of Soviet trucks were UK and US based 1943. Anybody with two brain cells would say yes, because Stalin was a butcher. He was a horrible person. We could look at the Holodomor, we could look at the purges, we could look at the killings, we could look at the lack of freedom of speech, we could look at any of these things. We could look at the restriction of elections in Eastern Europe, any of these things. But the answer is clearly yes, because Stalin and the Soviet Union was less of a apocalyptic threat than Adolf Hitler. Because the thing is, people can bring up like Soviet death numbers, that's true, but there was nothing fundamental about Soviet ideology that meant the complete extermination of all Slavs, of all Jews, of all homosexuals. Political dissidents, fair enough. There was no ideology in it that we need to conquest this nation to just kill every single of their population to make way for Lebensraum. Because if the Germans would have won, every single Slav would have been nothing more than a lifeless body in a ditch. That is lesser evilism as a historical example. If you have two choices, you pick the best of two choices electorally. Does that mean that's where you stop? No, of course not. That'd be ridiculous. The thing is with living in a democracy, some people choose to live in a democracy every 2 to 4 years. That one day a year you live in a democracy, and that is taking your ballot, writing your name on it, writing your candidate, and putting it in the box, and that's your democracy. But I would like to live in a democracy 365 days a year, with protests, with union organizing, with direct action, mutual aid. These are things that we should be relying on, organizing political PACs, and preparing for electoralism every 2 to 4 years. So, all you have to do is if you want to question if somebody questions you on lesser evilism, even though you should of course always say this is not my end goal, is the person I'm voting for here, just bring up a few historical examples.
The reason why you would enable his presidency is because it's going to destroy the conservative movement. I mean, so why? It's short term. I mean, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you espouse this if it's only going to be 2 years and we can weather the storm and the Democrats could? Why would you support Bernie Sanders?
This is a comment from chat. Yugoslavs are forever grateful to Stalin. I don't know if you know this, but Joseph Broz Tito had like probably a couple dozen assassination attempts on his life by Joseph Stalin until he eventually wrote a letter to Stalin saying, if you send one more assassin, I'm going to kill you. Then the assassin stopped, coincidentally. Crazy. And I do think Yugoslavs have probably a better opinion of Joseph Broz Tito than Stalin. Also, if your argument is Stalin liberated you, I do want to make clear that the West also sent aid to Yugoslavia. And during the entirety of the Cold War, the Yugoslavs had the non-aligned movement and got aid from both the Soviet Union and the West. And in fact, I'm pretty sure the Soviet Union had to apologize to the Yugoslav government due to Stalin's actions during the Cold War. So, let's be clear. Also, a people can view a leader positively and they still do negative things outside of that. A great example is Albanian. The Albanian people are beautiful, wonderful people. And they have a very different view of Bill Clinton than Somalians do. People are named after Bill Clinton in Albania. There's statues of Bill Clinton. The general opinion of Bill Clinton in Albania is very high. And that's because of the intervention in the Yugoslav conflict in the 1990s, especially 1999 in Kosovo. That is a very different opinion than you ask your average Somalian on Bill Clinton. So just because, even if you were to tell me that all of the Yugoslav people just completely love Stalin, which I'm sure that I'm not Yugoslav, so I don't know the average Yugoslav opinion on it, that wouldn't make Stalin a good person.
Well, it's a risk assessment, right? So right now, if my choices are Donald Trump or neoliberal, warmongering Hillary Clinton in bed with...
Sorry about the quick Yugoslav history lesson. I just saw that and it interested me.
Wall Street frackers and the big pharma, I'm going to say the risk, I'll take that risk of Donald Trump destroying the Republican Party. But if I get a real progressive and that the country is behind and he can raise awareness and consciousness about what it means to be a real socialist, that we're the richest country the face of the earth has ever seen, and we can afford universal health care, and we can afford a college for everybody, and we can regulate Wall Street and have a good economy, I'll take that bet. That's my risk assessment there. But if my risk assessment, my choices are Hillary and Donald, that's a different risk.
And so you have basically said that the Supreme Court is irrelevant in this assessment too, right?
No,
because let me just get this clear. Because the Democrats are going to filibuster for 2 years, then the Democrats are going to take over the Senate, and then they're going to continue to filibuster for another 2 years. And because of the collapse of the Republican Party, we're going to get a Democrat that you can support. Who might that be? Do you have an idea 4 years out who the Democrat you're going to support for president is? Or is it going to be Jill Stein?
Sure, I like Elizabeth Warren.
Okay, so you think Elizabeth Warren is going to run 4 years and she's going to get elected and then everything's going to be fine?
Well, that did not happen. Elizabeth Warren did not become president. It was Biden. That's just far off. I mean, she did run. She had a good run, but she did not win. And really, upon reflection, there was not many paths for her victory.
That's the plan?
I mean, Sam, my plan is to filibuster.
Also, since then, he really does not like Elizabeth Warren. I guess his opinion has quickly changed on the woman.
Any bad nominees that Donald Trump nominates, and we come to a compromise. Hey,
so
Merrick
you
Garland's
think the
our
Democrats
compromise.
can maintain a filibuster over the course of those 4 years if there's 2 vacancies or 3 vacancies?
You think that Donald Trump can keep nominating maniacs to the Supreme Court who isn't a compromised judge? Why can't we force him to nominate a compromised judge? Why wouldn't we put the pressure on him? By the way, you act like
I would just say
scandals.
Thomas,
There will be constant
Alito,
scandals,
Roberts.
constant scandals surrounding Donald Trump. He will be the most ineffective president. This whole idea that
There was constant scandal around Donald Trump. It didn't stop him. He just kept going. He didn't care. He's somebody who shines in the limelight. He just used that constant scandal to beat up support and get more donations. I think that constant scandal, definitely during the end of the presidency, did hurt him, but the thing that ultimately did him in was the economic crash and recession, the COVID, and the alienation of independent voters, right? Those former two, I think, were the biggest roles. How much he really, in a crisis, could not handle a crisis, which was COVID. But the idea that he was ineffective because of constant scandal, he would be like, oh yeah, I said the looting starts, the shooting starts. Sad, who cares? Whatever. Anyway, here's more deregulation. He did it. The whole Trump presidency, he prioritized Republican establishment interests. He did it. He did it. Jimmy Dore is completely wrong here.
Somehow he will be equal standing when he nominates someone in the Supreme Court is ridiculous. They're gonna.
He got not only 3 Republican Supreme Court nominees, not 1, not 2, but 3. He also appointed Republican judges across the local level, all across this country, like in historic fashion.
Him a new one every time he does something. He will be over scrutinized. Hillary won't be as scrutinized as
You're
him,
going to
and that's
have
why
a
I'm afraid of
Democratic
her.
Senate and Congress for 2 years. They're going to be able to pass every single piece of legislation they want.
You're saying
Republican.
in 2 years, well,
You're going to have a Republican
that-
House, a Republican Senate, a Republican
for 2
president.
years.
Sam Seder's right here. Sam Seder's right. They had a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Republican president for 2 years, and they just steamrolled for those 2 years. They got Neil Gorsuch in there. They got Kavanaugh in there, and even when they lost the House, still had the Senate, they got Amy Coney Barrett in after Ruth Bader Ginsburg died.
For 2 years.
For 2 years. Yeah, I know this is my risk assessment. My risk assessment is that when Donald
Well, he's terrible at risk assessment. He should not work in national defense whatsoever.
Trump proposes crazy stuff, we can coalesce, we can block him. Also, the Democrats can filibuster horrible stuff in the Senate. I'm saying fight, don't give in.
Okay. Well, I mean, you've made your case.
It doesn't sound. I mean, Sam, I understand we disagree, and I could be wrong. I'm saying this is my risk.
No, Jimmy, you're wrong.
I don't think it's because I don't understand.
It is.
Because I don't
It is.
understand what's
It is.
going on.
It is. Because because the idea that Peter Thiel and Merrick Garland would rule the same and there would be no demonstrable difference is absurd. It's absurd, Jimmy. I'm sorry. It's absurd.
No.
It's
That's
absurd.
not my idea. That's not. I don't know. I agree. I don't even know who Peter Thiel is that much. So I that's not my idea. That was what. I'm not trying to throw my friend Steve under the bus, but that's not my main point, and I'll concede that point. That Peter Thiel. I don't even know who he is really. So
The idea that the
I
Democrats, the idea that the Democrats are going to take back the Senate and are going to be able to filibuster for 2 years, and assuming that no other vacancy opens up, also ignores all of the political history.
By the way,
of the history.
we did not filibuster. They just bopped the filibuster and appointed anyway.
Of this country, I've never heard of a 2-year failure to fill a Supreme Court seat, and certainly not during a time where there's no other news, and not during a time where the Republicans are going to control both houses. I'm sorry, it's absurd.
You know what else?
It's absurd.
You know what I never
it's a screenplay.
You know what else I never heard of? Is that war crimes being ordered at the top of government and nobody prosecuting them. I never heard of that.
You've never heard of that? Because that has been basically the history of this country.
I never heard of our government suspending habeas corpus, which is in the Magna Carta. They did that.
What is he talking about? What is he talking about? This is a complete lack of knowledge of basic American history. Just look at the entire treatment of the Native Americans. We gave soldiers medals of honor for going and massacring Native American civilians. Yes, there's been war crimes up and down without prosecution in the United States before. That is historical fact. And number 2, never have we suspended habeas corpus. Abraham Lincoln, one of the most respected presidents in the history of this country, suspended habeas corpus during the Civil War to deal with Confederate sympathizers. This is basic American history. Maybe if Oh my God, maybe if Jimmy Dore studied some basic American history, he would know this, and maybe it would have a slight impact on his modern political positions. No, maybe if you have a complete separation from basic American history, that can explain Jimmy Dore's position on this completely asinine position of, well, if Trump wins, then maybe the Republicans will just, like, do nothing for the last 4 years. What is he talking about?
I couldn't believe what they
Under
did. I
a
never heard them
Republican
repeal the
president
glass
with
steagall.
Republican justice.
Oh yeah, and Abraham Lincoln was a Republican president. He was a Republican president. So you think it's gonna change as a Republican administration? Oh my God.
I can't believe we have a surveillance state right now. I can't believe you want me to vote for a candidate who was full-throated supporting going in and destabilizing
The Patriot Act was passed in 2001.
the Middle East.
No,
Then
Jimmy,
went into
Jimmy,
Libya and
wait,
destabilized
Jimmy.
See, this is no longer about the specifics. Now Jimmy Dore, he's lost the argument. He can't debate the Supreme Court, and he was wrong. There was 3 separate Supreme Court appointments during the Trump presidency. The Trump presidency did the Republican establishment's bidding, and he did it in the most extreme ways possible when it comes to tax cuts, deregulations, going after minority groups like the LGBTQ plus community, whether it goes to the trans military ban, whether it goes after LGBTQ plus adoption centers, any of these things. He did all of it. He can't argue it. So now what he's going to do is hammer at Hillary Clinton's history so much, completely leave the nuance of the discussion they were having that was actually somewhat productive. Since he doesn't know the history about habeas corpus or doesn't know the history of these war crimes, and he's going to move it to be like, well, Hillary Clinton did all of this bad stuff, which Trump would have done every single bad thing Hillary would have done to sometimes a greater extent. For example, somebody will talk about the Iraq War. Trump publicly on TV supported the Iraq War until 2005. Trump produced a video calling for intervention in Libya. Do you guys know about this? I don't know if I even have. I've shown this on stream before. But let me, AEW. Trump, Libya. What is with my YouTube recommendation? I'm going to kill my editor. Trump, Libya, video. Trump, Libya. Where is it? I was never for strong intervention. This is a lie. Where is, here it is.
Many people are asking me, what do I think of Libya and its so-called newfound freedom? The fact is, what we should have done is we should have asked the rebels when they came to us, and they came to us. They were being routed by Gaddafi. They were being decimated. We should have said, we'll help you, but we want 50% of your oil. They would have absolutely said, okay, 100%.
So not only was he in favor of intervention in Libya, he wanted to do it for a price. Their oil. Like, that's so direct.
In fact, they would have said, how about 75%? So they came to us.
By the way, he's just wrong. He would have just granted us 75% of their oil.
Were nothing. They were gone. The war was over. He was taking over. Then all of a sudden, we go in through NATO, which is funded by us largely, and which is
this is not even the actual video I was talking about. This video, he's talking about stealing their oil. There's another video where he's pleading for President Obama to go in there and just start bombing them. If somebody can find me that video, I'd really appreciate it. Oh, wrong video.
Hey, I don't want you to vote for anybody. I don't want you to, listen, no, Jimmy, you're missing my point. I don't want you to vote. I don't care who you vote for. You live in California. What I want you to do is to stop offering theories about politics on your platform that are bogus, that are not
Yeah, well, I think I just
by,
proved to you they're not bogus, Sam. You haven't
didn't.
proved that they're bogus at all, except that you said it.
Well,
I'm sorry. God, I was muted that whole time. Not a single thing Jimmy Dore has said the entirety of this segment was he right on. He was wrong on every single segment. He was wrong about the history of the country. He was wrong about what would happen with the Supreme Court. We were not able to filibuster. We got 3 Supreme Court seats in there, and Trump prioritized Republican establishment positions. He steamrolled it through. Why can't he get anything right on this? Thing is, The reason why this video is important is because we're seeing the whole like Jimmy Dore, Kyle Kalinske, everything right now. But one of the main ways you can figure out if a political commentator is worth listening to is go and look back at their predictions and see if they were right, if they make a lot of predictions or comments on strategy and such. And Jimmy Dore makes some predictions here that were wrong. He makes some comments on strategy that would not work. He makes comments about American history that were wrong. We didn't even need to wait 4 years for the habeas corpus comment. Just look at the Civil War. This right here is a great example of why you need to go back every once in a while, look at some old content of some content creators or commentators and see if they're worth listening to.
I showed you how you're wrong about all this stuff, and you're voting out of fear again. Out of fear. Oh, because there might be 2 Supreme Court judges. What if there's 3? What if the moon falls into Lake Michigan?
He says, what if there's 2 Supreme Court justices? What if there's 3? And he's saying, what if there's 3? If it's a wild scenario, that is the most wild thing that could possibly happen. It's totally not going to happen. Like he's saying, like anything could happen. It could be 3 Supreme Court justices. Yeah, Jimmy, that is actually what happened. The thing you're saying now, mocking, as if there's no way this could happen, is what happened, Jimmy. It was 3 Supreme Court justices.
What are we going to do then?
Now, Jimmy, let's talk about risk assessment. Do you think there's a difference in the probability that 2 80-year-olds with multiple cases of cancer are going to serve out their term versus the moon falling into Lake Michigan?
I just disagree with your forecasting, Sam. I don't agree with it.
Well, you were wrong, Jimmy. Not only was it not 2, Sam Seder undersold it. It was 3. That thing, you equated 3 Supreme Court justices to the lake falling, to the moon falling into Lake Michigan. Now, because of this, because of how wrong you were, I am calling for a total and complete evacuation of all people living around Lake Michigan, because I am more confident of the moon falling into Lake Michigan now because Jimmy Dore said it wouldn't happen.
I think it's a bigger risk.
Do you want to look at actuarial tables for the life expectancy of an 80-year-old man who's had multiple cancers?
Sam, I can right now get you a great deal on term life insurance, and you know that's the best insurance there is.
I have term.
See? You know it. Sam, this is about me being better looking, isn't it?
See, the thing is, Jimmy Dore is using this joke. I mean, it's funny, it's great, it's hilarious. He's using the joke to pivot out of it. Do you know how I know it? Because I've done this before. If I'm in a corner, sometimes I'll try to use comedy to get out of it. A lot of commentators do that. They'll just throw a few jokes, I try to get out of the corner. He's doing it. He couldn't answer it, so just throw the joke. Like, don't you think it's like a completely plausible scenario that 2 80-year-old people with cancer could die in the next 4 years?
No, I mean, listen, it's not funny to me, and that's the problem. Is that it is not funny to me. I think it's really dangerous. What is
dangerous? That people vote their conscience?
No, I think what's dangerous is honestly using your platform and espousing fantastical notions that I think that could be really detrimental to the lives of literally millions of people.
Did you say this about MSNBC when they were pushing the Hillary Clinton candidacy?
Yeah.
Did you say that they were irresponsible?
Yeah. Well, I disagreed with them.
Yeah, but you didn't say they were just irresponsible and reckless and all that stuff to use their platform to tell people to vote for Hillary Clinton?
I don't watch it that often. The only show I watch is Hayes, and I don't think he was doing that.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that if somehow somebody disagrees with you to the left, they're irresponsible.
You're not disagreeing with me to the left. You're not disagreeing with me. We're not disagreeing on ideology. We're disagreeing on the way politics works. We're disagreeing on tactics.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the people who disagree with me gave us frickin' Hillary Clinton. Geniuses. Fucking geniuses, Sam. So anybody who's supporting someone...
Even if I have a million disagreements with people who picked Hillary over Bernie in 2016, they still were more right about the future and the damage Trump could do to the country than Jimmy was. Because Trump did deliver on many of his promises, not the big fantastical ones like getting rid of all the debt in the wall, but and the ones he didn't fulfill, he used that time to instead fulfill Republican priorities like deregulation, targeting healthcare, kicking people off of food stamps.
Who gave full-throated support to the Iraq War. I don't need your advice on how to vote.
Well, I'm not advising you on how to vote, Jimmy.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to anybody.
Well, I mean, but you can make this about, about your own personal affront that you feel and insults that you feel. But that's not what it's about.
It is insulting that anybody who is for somebody other than the main two parties is try to dismiss them, or you try to marginalize them. Not you, but you also, yes, but the mainstream establishment press also does that. They're still calling Jill Stein. She's in bed with Putin now, and she's anti-bad. All this stuff. The same thing I did to Bernie. Bernie was a sexist. Bernie was a misogynist. It's just ridiculous, right? So you get to vote for a third party. That's what democracy.
The thing is, this is switching from a conversation about policy to what I feel like when I hear like conservatives talk about like getting banned from Twitter, or their views are getting throttled when Donald Trump Jr. made his plea to the Instagram gods. This is no longer a discussion about whether voting for Hillary would be the best move, or how actually the Supreme Court is really important, and I think Trump could prioritize a lot of Republican Party priorities, and a discussion of history. This is now a victimhood contest. And what I mean by that is a persecution complex. This is no longer about what would be better for the country. This is about, mainstream media said this. This is about, look what happened to Jill Stein. And even though everyone here acknowledges Jill Stein is not an actual option. And what I mean by actual option isn't that you can't legally vote for her, but she's not going to be president ever. And she wasn't going to be president then, and it didn't take a political expert to make that prediction. And it's so frustrating when I feel like some people are working off of. It's not that I think that Jimmy Dore here is being like a fundamentally bad person. You can disagree with me in chat if you want to. I think it's that Jimmy Dore and Sam Seder are living in two completely separate realities. Jimmy Dore thought that 3 Supreme Court justices getting appointed to the Supreme Court was comparable to the moon falling into Lake Michigan. And what happened? 3 Republican picks were appointed to the Supreme Court. So now I'm taking a very nervous look at the moon. It seemed that Sam Seder was more tethered to reality than Jimmy.
Is all about, Sam. You get to have a choice. And this idea that you can't vote for a...
And when I'm talking about bad person, this is excluding the Anna Kasparian stuff. This is just in the realm of this conversation, right?
Third party, until a lot of people are already voting for it, is an F argument, okay? And there's a reason why we don't have justice for it.
People can vote. People can vote. Nobody, listen, you're making the same argument that that right-wingers make. Like, you're trying to censor my speech. You can vote any way you want.
Yeah, Sam, again, this is all about some type of personal affront, and I don't care. I don't care about anybody's feelings in this. I don't care if people feel marginalized. I don't care. It's not what this is about. Well, I know it's about that you feel like somebody who has a different political opinion. Everybody who's in the Green Party is reckless to you.
No. That's not.
No.
The thing is, I don't think I know a lot of people who I actually, me and the I think like one of the main leaders of the Maryland Green Party. We follow each other on Twitter. We're very friendly. But I've made my position to him very clear that I believe that investing time and organizing into the Green Party is a losing effort and bad strategy. But I'm not going to like point at somebody using a different strategy to achieve relatively the same goals and say, screw you, right? If I believe that calisthenics is better for a boxer to do than, like, I don't know, lifting weights, that doesn't mean we don't both want that boxer to win. I just have a complete disagreement on policy. Like voting for Jill Stein, strategy, not policy. Strategically made 0 sense.
It's not the case.
Just me?
No, I don't think that you're reckless because of your support of the Green Party. I think you're reckless because of the way that you're articulating tactics and the idea that you're dismissive of the Supreme Court, and you're basically not providing any context for the plan that you have, that this is going to long-term work out well for people. I mean, just in the past 5 months, we've seen the importance of having even a split Supreme Court in terms of enfranchising hundreds of thousands of voters, in terms of maintaining the existence of public sector unions. I mean,
I agree. Sam, I agree with you on this. It's very important. The Supreme Court is so that's a straw man. I don't think it's not important. I think it is very important.
If he says he thinks it's important, he's not treating it like it's important, because his position on the Supreme Court here is, well, the Democrats could just, filibuster it for 2 years. And what did the Republicans do when they got in there? They took out the filibuster like a sick horse with a broken leg, took it out back and shot it, and then put in 3 Supreme Court justices, which he thought was completely impossible. Colonial Merchant, thank you so much for the Prime Gaming.
And I laid out my strategy for how the Democrats could fight. Now, you lay out a strategy for how the Democrats could roll over. And that's just the difference between me and you. And I think yours is complacent. It's establishment.
How do you know
The thing is, right, let's say that somebody, this is really weird, right, because his strategy was the filibuster, right, which failed immediately. Then we got 3 Supreme Court justices. Let's say there's 2 types of people. One who's like, we need to make a strategic retreat here and move and get over there because there's 20 tanks coming and all we have is a spoon and a marble. I don't think we're going to be able to stop it. Sam Seder's the type of person like, yeah, let's make a strategic retreat until we can maybe get some anti-tank landmines or some stuff like that. Jimmy Dore is the type of person to walk up to that tank holding the spoon and marble and just scream as he gets run over. Like, I hope that made you feel good, but in effect, you help no one.
Day one, how do you know on day one,
It's
Mitch
fear.
McConnell, wait a second. How do you know on day one, Mitch McConnell won't change the rules to get rid of the filibuster for Supreme Court justices?
Hey, how do you know
And that's what happened. Well, that wasn't day one, but he did do it.
on the first day Hillary won't bomb Syria with a nuclear weapon?
What? Because that would go against years of United States policy? And we saw no indication from Hillary that she intended to do that? You could say, well, she left nukes on the table. Basically, every president did it, and none of them launched nukes. The last time there was a real chance of us, launching nukes to achieve a small-scale strategic advantage was during the Korean War, when the Soviet Union didn't have nuclear weapons, and that was because of Douglas MacArthur. And you want to know what happened to Douglas MacArthur? He lost his job. So no, there was never any reality that we lived in where Hillary Clinton was gonna nuke Syria. What is he talking about?
Well, all right.
How do you know?
I also don't know that the moon won't fall into the Lake Michigan.
Right.
But you know what? I mean, honestly, Jimmy, to make those analogies, I think.
By the way, Trump, while in office, dropped what is considered the closest weapon to a nuclear weapon in the United States, the Moab, the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan. So if anything, not only would Hillary have not dropped a nuke, Trump dropped the closest thing to a nuke that he could have dropped. Oh my God, this is so frustrating.
Indicative, and people can judge for themselves. People can judge for themselves. If people think that it is so far-fetched that Mitch McConnell will take the next step and get rid of filibusters or change the threshold for filibusters for Supreme Court nominees so that Donald Trump can get his nominee
Sam is right.
through,
Sam is right here.
He's
the
same
100%
as
right.
Hillary Clinton sending a nuclear weapon to Syria. If people genuinely think the chances of those are the same, they can assess that.
So every crazy, fearful scenario you can concoct in your fear-riddled brain.
It wasn't a crazy, fear-filled scenario. It happened. And the thing that you propose as a crazy thing that could never happen also happened.
It's accurate and makes sense. right? That to you, every crazy.
No.
Every time I say
People,
something, you move the goalposts once again. What if Mitch McConnell does this? What if there's 2 Supreme Court justices?
the point
What if
is
there's
the
this? What if
risk
there's that?
assessment
The
that you're
point is the
making
Democrats
doesn't
are
actually
silent.
include any awareness of how politics work, Jimmy.
Yeah. Oh, yes, it does, Sam. And I just gave you my position. And you can't really refute it, except you come up with some new fear scenario.
What do you mean refute
So-
it? It wasn't what he just said. Just is what happened in reality. He did I can't. This is too frustrating.
The scenario is the Democrats can filibuster. Right now, the Republicans aren't even giving the guy a hearing. So the fact is that can happen, but you want to roll over. It's a weak, it's spineless Democrat.
The Republicans are not filibustering now. They're just not bringing up a nomination. They're not
Correct.
filibustering.
Without batting an eye. Without batting an eye, they won't fill that seat. And I'm saying the Democrats could do the same thing. And you're saying they won't.
Look at the polling of the Democratic Party. Look at the polling of the Democratic Party. The Democratic voters don't want their senators to do that.
Somebody just said this is why Jimmy doesn't debate. Yes, this is why Jimmy doesn't debate. Because when he's pushed back on his positions are shown for what they are. They're on a different planet. They're not in the same reality as us. While Sam Seder is talking about real things that could happen, and that did happen with the Supreme Court. Everything Sam Seder's saying here with the Supreme Court happened. In fact, it went further, and it went into the reality, which Jimmy Dore said was impossible, and compared it to the moon going into Lake Michigan, 3 Supreme Court justices appointed. Instead of living in that reality, Jimmy Dore is living in the reality of maybe Hillary Clinton will nuke Syria, which was never going to happen and only existed in the most fear-filled fantasies of Russia Today, Gray Zone, and Partisan Girl, okay? It wasn't in the same reality that we live in. That was never going to happen. He didn't say, well, maybe she'll drone strike Syria. Most certainly she would have at some point in northeastern Syria. She would have probably continued Operation Inherent Resolve. And I do think that she would have had a more clear-cut policy than Trump on Syria. But there was never any reality we lived in where nuclear weapons were really on the table in Syria. The United States, as Russia, will always say that nuclear weapons are on the table. It's a position we've held for a long time. It's a position that the Russian Federation and the Soviet Union have held for a long time. But that doesn't mean we're going to start using nuclear weapons in strategic strikes across the region. That would be such a break from policy. This is just fantasy land. I might as well say that Hillary Clinton was going to take a wiffle ball bat and beat Xi Jinping to death if we're going in fantasy land. Like, that's as likely as her dropping a nuke on Syria.
Republican voters do. Do you think that means nothing?
Oh, say it again.
If you look at polling as to actions of Democratic senators versus Republican senators, Republicans don't want compromise. Republican voters. Democratic voters do. Now, you and I may not agree with that, may not want Democratic voters to compromise, but that's what they do. Politicians react to what voters want.
We all know they don't.
They do in this instance.
We know
they
that.
do. We do know they do that, right? We do know that
know
because
that they
we've
don't.
never seen, Democratic politicians come out and say, "I won't compromise my principles. I won't compromise."
Writing this down. I'm going to write this down. Sam Seder says that Congress responds to the will of voters. This is a new one.
Well, all right.
That's a new one because we know it's been proven scientifically, Sam, that that's not true. That's why we already live in an oligarchy, Sam. We already know that. You don't know that? Haven't you read those articles?
No, I've interviewed all those people, Jimmy. Look, let me tell you something.
I'm sorry, what?
I've interviewed all those people who wrote those articles.
Oh, so you know this.
Yeah, I do know this. Now, Jimmy, look.
Are you ignoring it?
People can assess whether or not your plan, I'll let you lay it out one more time without any interruption. How's this going to work? Donald Trump gets elected, and then tell me who controls the Senate and the House, and then what happens going forward.
So, but I just want to make sure you're standing by that Congress is influenced by voters.
I know that Democratic politicians project that they will compromise and Republicans don't, and because their voters want those things.
Okay.
And
Well,
there's
we
no
both know
big
that-
money. There's no big money interests that are on the other side of that. And so that Martin Gillard's research that you're talking about shows that the only time that money trumps is when it's contested. And money doesn't give a shit about whether or not Republicans put on a face that they're not going to compromise and obstruct. And money doesn't give a shit whether or not Democratic politicians compromise. They don't care about that. They care about their issues. So go back, read that Gillen stuff, and understand it better. But give...
Holy shit, man. Oh my God, man. The thing is, there's a reason why Steven Crowder's dad wanted to keep Steven Crowder away from Sam Seder. It is because he's just like this. Because people will come onto his show and they'll try to be friendly and crack jokes, and Sam will be like, okay, wonderful, now let's get to it. He won't like change his temperament just to be friendly with you. If he disagrees with you, he'll say it, and he will stay on point. He won't let you go into fantasy Hillary Clinton's gonna nuke Syria land. He'll drag you back. He will drag you back, man. Look, Jimmy Dore's trying to do like fucking ballet or something, just dodge around every position. And Sam Seder is like a sambo expert, right? He's an expert in like Russian wrestling, okay? He's like the Russian experiment. He's not gonna let you move. He's got you in the hold. He is not letting you move till you answer his question. And I love it, man. I love this.
your plan.
So you're saying
That's why they call him Sambo Sam? Exactly, baby.
That's it.
that I'm misinterpreting that Congress actually
No,
is
you read the
responsive to
top
voters.
line. But give your plan.
I'm saying,
give your plan so the people can assess
Okay.
it, and we'll let them decide.
okay, so we didn't settle that issue. We'll move on to the next one. My plan is that if you're an environmentalist, if you want to re-regulate Wall Street, if you're for less war, if you're for fighting climate change, if you're against fracking, if you're in that movement,
this isn't strategy. This is grandstanding. Sam Seder asked him how would his plan work, and now he's grandstanding.
the Democratic Party offers you a graveyard, that you're going to have to fight those same people. So I agree with Chris Hayes and Ben Howe from RedState.com that if Donald Trump is president, he fractures the Republican Party. Paul Ryan is not going to usher through his agenda.
They did usher through his agenda, and Trump ushered through the agenda of the Republican establishment. There's a few things he didn't get done, but that was because Trump never had real consistency on any issues.
Such an incompetent. There will be on nothing but scandal.
They had a bunch of scandals. All of those scandals were ignored, and he plowed through anyway. And he got things done like massive tax cuts, deregulation, targeted health care, basically all Republican priorities.
100%. He will be ineffectual. He won't be able to get anything done.
He got a ton done. It was actually scary how much he got done.
And in 2 years, we flipped the Congress, we flipped the Senate to Democrats.
We flipped the House in 2018. We couldn't even really, in reality, flip the Senate in 2018, and we barely flipped it in 2020.
We could do it right now if Hillary was a little smarter. Number two, and then in 4 years we get a real Democrat instead of a fake liberal who's going to push Republicans.
In 4 years, we got Joe Biden, who he would consider a fake liberal, not real Democrat. So this accelerationist position of electing Donald Trump instead of Hillary Clinton didn't even work.
In policies. And as far as
and don't blame me for that. If you want to blame anyone, blame the black voters of South Carolina, I guess. You can't blame me for that.
Supreme Court goes right now. I've already laid it out a million times. Right now, I say the Democrats can do what the Republicans are doing. I know they're not filibustering, but
can he say anything that's right? Like anything in the segment that ended up being true?
What they're doing is they're not filling the seat on
so far. The only thing he got right is in 2018 we got the House, but he wasn't even right about the Senate in 2018.
Purpose. And you think that the public opinion will have make them compromise. Anyway, I'm saying that we can do what the Republicans are doing. You're advocating for more spineless liberalism and roll over and take it. I'm saying let's fight the power now because we're going to have to fight the power no matter what. We're going to have to fight Hillary to get rid of more wars. We're going to have to fight Hillary to get rid of fracking. We're going to have to fight Hillary to re-regulate Wall Street. So that's my position. I appreciate.
But the fight would be easier with Hillary than Trump because Trump has no reason to even acknowledge our existence. Joe Biden gets in, repeals the XO Keystone Pipeline. The thing is, if you live in two separate realities, then there's no way you're going to acknowledge the resistance. Hillary Clinton believed in climate change. Trump didn't.
Let me make it, and I understand that you think I'm uninformed, and I don't think that of you. I think you're very informed. I think we just disagree, and I was kidding. I think you're more handsome than me.
Well, I think we look very similar, frankly, and I know we buy all our clothes and get our glasses at the same place. I mean, I think it's people would have trouble picking us out of a lineup. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, there it is. I mean, people can assess whether or not the chances of the Democrats taking back the Senate in 2 years, whether or not Democrats, it would be nice.
The thing is, keep seeing like Jimmy Dore fans come through the comment section, and instead of like being like, well, Dylan, here's why you're wrong about the Supreme Court justices. Or Dylan, here's why you're wrong on climate change. Or Dylan, here's why you're wrong. Instead, it's like, wow, you guys are really like perturbed at Jimmy. Well, yes, when people are wrong consistently, say incorrect things, and can't seem to get anything right, I'm going to be kind of frustrated. Definitely with this is the man that's trying to purity test other people like Bad Bunny does, when they can't get anything right on politics.
If they did a unprecedented filibuster for 2 years, and that there's no danger of other Supreme Court justices passing away, and that at a time where there'll be no major...
Here's my question. If you're a Jimmy Dore fan in chat and you think I'm an idiot, let me answer me this question. Do you acknowledge that Jimmy Dore was wrong about the Supreme Court? Do you acknowledge that Jimmy Dore was wrong about Syria? Do you acknowledge that Jimmy Dore was wrong about the Senate in 2018? Do you acknowledge that Jimmy Dore was wrong about Trump getting nothing done during his presidency because of scandal? These were the four pillars that, except for maybe the Senate, these were the, I guess, three pillars that his argument was built upon. If you acknowledge all of this, then you should just be saying, okay, Jimmy was wrong here, but I agree with him on other things.
Your election of a reality show star to attract...
The Jimmy Dore crowd definitely thinks he was right about Syria. He did not even know what the SDF were until months after he was talking about the Duma chemical attacks. He is saying here that Hillary Clinton would have nuked Syria, or that it was possible in the realm of reality in comparison to 3 Supreme Court justices that could get appointed by Trump, which did happen. Him talking about Syria is just bizarre to me.
People's attention away from their preventing a 5th justice from 9th justice from sitting on the court, and perhaps an 8th justice from sitting on the court. All that would be wonderful if that were the case, and it would be great if a Republican Senate and House and President passed no legislation.
You know what? When I hear like derangement syndrome, when somebody's doing obviously bad things, I feel like, I wonder if this could be applied in any other area, right? Like, because when you say derangement syndrome and you get there, I've done it a few times, but if you're doing that in replacement of like arguing policy or arguing positions, it just kind of, it's like if somebody was like, wow, this Jeffrey Dahmer guy is a butcher. He's a terrible guy. Oh my God, he is awful. He is terrible. He's killed so many. And then someone walks up to him like, wow, look at this Jeffrey derangement syndrome over here. See how much he's got him in a tizzy? He must be right about something. Just because you make somebody angry doesn't mean you're right. You could just be a prick. You know, that's physically possible. You could just be a prick.
And didn't in any way harm climate change, didn't reverse the Paris Accords, as small as a step in the right direction as they may be, or undo things like, I don't know, FDA regulations, EPA.
And if somebody just brought this up in chat, and if you think I'm like dancing in fantasy land, that's what's happening with Matt Gaetz right now with this underage sex trafficking scandal, where people are just saying, wow, he's really making the libs angry. Oh my God, he must really be on point right now, even though he's literally in a sex trafficking scandal.
Regulations, education regulations. That would be great if all that happens. And for your sake, you know, I hope you're right, that all those things do happen.
And I hope you're right I hope I'm right too. I'm not. Hey, again, I'm not saying. I'm saying I'm taking a calculated risk. And when the choices are Hillary and Donald Trump, I'm not telling anybody to vote for Donald Trump, by the way. I'm saying if you want to hold your nose and vote for Hillary, that's okay too. I'm just letting people know that there's another work out. That's what I'm saying. And that all the pundits who thought they knew everything about everything are the ones who led us to this position right now. All the pundits who've been screwing over working people for 30 years.
I'm a pundit who thinks he knows everything about everything, and I don't feel like I'm responsible for where we are right now.
No, I've been telling people it's mostly Sam Seder.
Okay, that was funny. But somebody just said, are you trying to equivocate Jimmy Dore and Matt Gaetz? No, I don't think they're the same. I don't think Jimmy Dore is in a sex trafficking scandal. He is kind of in a sex scandal, just sexual harassment. But the thing is, actually, to be fair, that you come to that sexual harassment scandal, there are a lot of people saying, wow, he pissed off TYT, must be doing something right. Of course, I'm not saying it's equivalent. What I'm trying to make, the point I'm trying to make is just because your guy pisses off people that you don't like, that doesn't make them good. Okay, if you don't like TYT and they piss off TYT, doesn't make Jimmy Dore smart and intelligent and really great with history and all these things. Okay, it doesn't. And that's the point I'm trying to make.
Well, as long as they spell my name right, then that'll work out. Well, Jimmy, I appreciate your calling in, and
hey, I appreciate you treating me fairly, and it's okay if you call me names, so I know you like me.
I didn't call you any names.
I say it's okay if you do in the future.
All right. All right, Jimmy. Thanks for calling in.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye, Michael.
Bye.
Michael Brooks. I missed that. I missed that voice.
I'm like a kid. Like conflicting family system here.
That was a great performance by Sam Seder. Jimmy Dore was wrong about the Supreme Court, and he compared what actually happened to the moon falling into Lake Michigan. He thought it was impossible. He was wrong about the Senate in 2018. He was wrong about a progressive Democrat winning in 2020. Like someone I think the example he gave was Elizabeth Warren. He was wrong about Hillary Clinton's policy on Syria when it comes to nuclear weapons usage. He was wrong about habeas corpus. He was wrong about war crime. He was wrong about basically everything. And again, the reason why we did this today isn't because this particular conversation is relevant in the politics of the day, really. I mean, it was just hearing Sam Seder say what ended up happening in most part. The reason why it was important is because it's good to go back and look at these conversations, because these conversations can help dictate who you really should be and shouldn't be listening to. Because if somebody is consistently wrong in making predictions, consistently wrong and ineffective in strategy, and then when they do get the helm of the wheel when it comes to strategy, when Trump was elected, and then it fails, and everything they said that was going to happen didn't. Like, for example, the idea that Trump wasn't going to be effective because of all of his scandals, when he had an extremely conservative presidency and he governed as a conservative Republican establishment type when it comes to basically 80% of his presidency. And he got a lot done. Like tax cuts for the rich, kicking people off of food stamps, historic support for Netanyahu. All these different things he got done. Deregulation, subsidies for coal companies. These things he got done were not terribly impacted by the scandals. And he was able to keep going forward because he's a man born in scandal. And so it was important to go back and watch this because Jimmy can't seem to get any of this right. Anyway,